Hi, I'm Joseph Wooten, Hands of Soul, and you are watching Not Just Country.
And welcome to Not Just Country TV. I'm your host, Max Fabulous. Today I have a special guest with me, world-renowned keyboardist, extraordinaire, arranger, producer, educator, motivational speaker, 3-time Grammy-nominated artist. I have with me today Mr. Joseph Wooten.
How you doing, man?
What's going on, sir?
Oh, man.
Everything good?
Everything's good.
Oh, wow, man. When I think about you guys, one thing that comes up is, of course, your Third and Lindsay thing that you should do every Wednesday. I don't know if you guys still do that, but I used to come, every Wednesday, and it was just amazing.
I don't play Third and Lindsay every Wednesday anymore, but that gig is still there. My brother Reggie still does it.
Okay.
So if you go on Wednesday night, you still get a chance to see Wooten's coming in and out. Victor's there sometimes, I'm there sometimes, but Reggie is there every week.
And speaking of your brothers, how many Wootens are there?
There are 4 now. There were 5. One brother passed away.
Okay. And you guys started what? When you were how old?
When Victor was 2, when I was 5, and Rudy, Roy, Reggie were 8, 9, and 10 in Hawaii.
Okay. Oh, in Hawaii.
In Hawaii. My dad was in the military.
I was going to ask you, from Hawaii to Nashville, Tennessee, how did that work?
Well, Hawaii to California, California from 68 to 72.
Okay.
And then Virginia, we moved to Virginia Halloween night, 1972, and we started leaving Virginia in the late 80s. Victor left first, Roy and Reggie not long after that, and I moved in 1990.
How do you guys find Nashville in Virginia?
Well, Victor found Victor found Tennessee through the Flecktones.
Oh,
Bela
okay.
Fleck was getting ready to do an Austin City Limits special, and he didn't want to do the typical Nashville thing. I guess he was looking for Not Just Country too.
Now, you guys growing up, you guys were pretty young, but I read somewhere that you guys opened for The Temptation, or not necessarily open, but just shared the stage for The Temptation.
No, we opened for The Temptation.
Curtis Mayfield, War, SOS, Ramsey Lewis. How did all that happen?
Well, Curtis Mayfield and War was in California, and we were really little, and that was where we got all of our good equipment. That's when our parents realized that we were doing it seriously. So as we started doing it seriously, we started playing nightclubs. Victor and I, plenty of times, would come home from elementary school, have to take naps because we're going to be playing that night from 10 to 2 in the morning, which is pretty late when you're 8 years old. Right, or 1970, I was 8, 9, and Victor was 3 years younger than me.
You got to do your math.
But we started making a name for ourselves in California, playing nightclubs and playing some colleges, and the word got around, got to Curtis's people. Curtis was coming through California, and they needed an opener, so we were one of the biggest local acts. So we got on that show. When we moved to Virginia, it was the same thing. We started to be the big fish in the little pond.
Oh, wow.
And so when the big R&B acts would roll through the Tidewater area, we started getting on more of those shows, The Temptations, Stephanie Mills, and SOS Band.
But off camera, you were talking about you have a James Brown story. Share that with us.
Yeah, well, James Brown was huge for us. If anybody knows anything about the Wootens, knows James Brown is a big part of what we are. But my mother and father took us to see James Brown at the Memorial Auditorium in 1970.
Okay. And where was this?
This was in California.
Okay.
And this was the really good band with Bootsy Collins on bass and
wow.
Maceo and the whole thing.
I've seen videos of that.
Yeah, and Bootsy was still a teenager,
Okay.
playing that White Fender Precision. I'll never forget it. But my mother thought a lot of well, it was easy to know that James Brown was an artist of substance.
Okay.
And my mother just knew that it would be really important for us, felt that it would be really important for us to meet.
And she pulled you guys out of school,
To meet
didn't
James. She pulled Victor and I out of school and took us, I don't know how she knew where they were, but she took us, drove us to this hotel and walked up and knocked on the door. And Bobby Bird was in there, and Maceo and St. Clair Pinckney and Pee Wee Ellis and James wasn't there. They said that James had already left on his private jet. But what I remember about it, especially in hindsight, is that they all came to the door. Yeah, I just remember there's all these great shoes laying all over the place. But
Gators?
they came, yeah. I mean, not Gators. Back then they were like two-tone and heels, and we talking the early 70s.
Okay.
But what I remember was they really took the time to talk to us and give us encouragement, and they signed autographs.
Wow.
And it sort of set the tone for us, for what an accomplished artist was supposed to be like. So we learned early that you talk to young people, and you make sure that you're excellent, and you make sure you represent yourself well. But that was a big moment for us, and what a great parent to recognize what that would do for us.
Exactly.
And it did exactly what she meant for it to do. It inspired us.
Well, let me ask you this, because like I said, you guys started off so young. Who were some of your musical influences?
Musical influences, well, James Brown is a big one. As we got older and got more accomplished, we started having jazz influences. So for me, I really love all that prowess of Art Tatum and his harmonic concept too. I love Herbie Hancock. George Duke is a big part of my electric playing. But a lot of our influences weren't musical. Like Muhammad Ali was as big an influence in our house as anybody. Bruce Lee was as big an influence as anybody. His focus and intensity and dedication and excellence was as big an influence in our house as anybody. Michael Jordan was a huge influence.
Wow, so it transcends not only to music, but just in the entertainment.
Yeah, well, just not so much necessarily entertainment, but excellence. Another big one for me was Pele, soccer player. Just that you could like do anything at that level. So we always had really high aspirations of how good we wanted to be and what we wanted to do with our artistry.
Now, you talked about, with the war, the Temptations, Ramsey Lewis, and so forth. Have you ever been starstruck?
Have I ever been starstruck? I've never been starstruck because I don't think I've ever been starstruck. I've been really excited about meeting some artists. But you were right.
Who moved you?
Well, I'm going to say this. You were right. It was Prince that I heard first say that
the fan fanatic.
Yeah, that short for a fan is short for fanatic. So I don't think I've ever been fanatical about anybody, but I've been really excited about meeting some people. I got a chance to work with George Clinton, which was huge.
I shared the stage with him one time down on the river one time, and I got to tell you, dancing and singing beside that guy with the diaper on, it was a good story. But go ahead, continue.
Okay. I got a chance to do some recording with George Clinton more than once. I'm the only Wooten brother that still hasn't met Bootsy. I want to do that. I still haven't met Bootsy. I got a chance to meet George Duke, who's a keyboard hero of mine. I've never got a chance to meet Herbie. I'd love to meet him. I think that's somewhere in there.
No, well, the thing about those artists is that they have so much history. Now, when you were in with George Clinton, how did that recording session go? Because I've heard some stories about George and Bootsy and so forth. When they're in the studio, they'll sleep there for maybe 7 days out of the week.
The interesting thing about George Clinton was he walked in, and how I would describe recording with George is order in chaos.
Oh, wow.
Because he had been recording in some other places, so there were probably 5 different hard drives with 5 different versions of Pro Tools that didn't speak to each other, with music going on all over the place, trying to find the music that he was looking for. And in the midst of all this noise, George would go, "Oh yeah, keep that. That was so and so and so and so. No, we don't need that. That's so and so and so." And then they put it all on the console because we were recording analog. They take all that digital music and transfer it over, and then it would make total sense. I don't see how he did it personally. But order and chaos seems to be the way that he does things, and it was all funky.
Okay, so you mentioned Bootsy is one of the people that you would like to meet. Anybody else?
Stevie Wonder. Absolutely.
Good one.
The thing that I really like about Stevie Wonder, everybody knows that Stevie Wonder has a great body of work. But the thing that amazes me the most about Stevie, because there are lots of artists with great bodies of work.
Correct.
And most of them, after they've had a bit of success, you start to hear their way of doing things. But Stevie has such a large body of work, and you can barely find 2 that sound alike.
Never thought of it.
Yeah, he's so excellent in so many different ways that don't overlap. You know, living for the city is nothing like Secret Life of Plants, was nothing like I Just Called to Say I Love You, was nothing like That Girl, which is nothing like
Superstition.
Yeah, exactly. There's all of this excellence in all of these different ways, which amazes me. So that's my goal in life. If I ever write something and Stevie Wonder says that's a good piece of writing, that would be a milestone.
You had some experience as a band leader. Tell me about that. How did you get into becoming a band leader?
Well, a band leader, that's if you want to hear your own music played live, you're pretty likely to become a band leader because you're the one that knows what it sounds like, what you want it to sound like the most. So you're the one in charge of it. That kind of makes you a band leader. The difference in being a band leader and just a musician is you have all the responsibility. So especially if you're a band leader that's getting ready to do a live concert. So where initially all you have to be concerned with is just being there, being on time, and being prepared yourself.
Right.
If you're a band leader, you need to make sure that everybody else is on time. Like call them in advance to make sure that they remember the gig, remind them of the things you want to remind them of, make sure their music is prepared, remind them of how they're supposed to be dressed. It's another level of response.
Is it like babysitting?
Whether or not it's babysitting, depends on the musician that you pick.
Okay.
So you try to pick a musician that's not going to make it babysitting. For the most part, at least in my experience, for the most part, it's not babysitting. But it is another level of responsibility, and it's another type of responsibility because as a band leader that's responsible for making a musical event happen, there's so much more to a musical event than just the music. If I'm a musician, all I got to think about is the music. If I'm a band leader, I have to think about a lot of other things also.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you were once in the studio with George Clinton, but you also had some experience working with Steve Miller. How did that come about?
1993, I just moved to Nashville in 1990, and I'm trying to make it as a musician. Moved to Nashville and got married in 1990. 1991, my wife and I have a son. And
does he play?
He does now, yeah. He's 21 and he plays guitar, bass, and drums, and he's a really good producer, artist, writer. My son Jesse Wooten. But Steve Miller, Jesse's 1 year old, and the financial ceiling is starting to cave in, and I'm still trying to make it as a musician. I happen to be playing a session with a guy named Chris McCarty, and Chris was a co-writer of Steve's greatest hit, Swingtown.
Oh, I thought you was going to say Joker, because that's my favorite song, Joker.
Yeah, he was a co-writer of Swingtown. So he told me about the opening in the Steve Miller Band, and he made sure that I sent in audition tape. That's how long ago it was, 20 years ago.
Wow.
In fact, it was 20 years on Earth Day.
Okay.
So I've been with the Steve Miller Band for 20 years. I sent in my audition tape. Steve was prepared to go out without a keyboard player, and my tape came in just in the nick of time. He liked it, and here I am 20 years later.
Wow, that's incredible. I want to ask you something about the tap on the shoulder to be a part of this elite group called the Freedom Sings.
Freedom Sings.
Yeah, what is that about?
Freedom Sings is hard to explain, but it's a multimedia presentation to educate people about the First Amendment. And it started by a man named Ken Paulson. Ken Paulson used to, he's the person that actually started USA Today. He's a pretty renowned journalist. And he put together a thing with Nashville musicians. He knew that if he just tried to tell people about the First Amendment, people would be like, So
next.
Exactly. So what he did, he got musicians, and the musicians would play music that was either had something to do with the First Amendment or music that was banned, and he wrapped his talk about the First Amendment around music and censorship because he knew people loved their music and people felt that censorship. So he would teach about the other parts of the First Amendment by this show called Freedom Sings.
Okay. Now, in the beginning, I was talking to you as I was introducing you, 3-time Grammy winner, arranger, writer, producer.
Nominee.
Glad you correct me on that. But there was one thing in there, motivational speaker. How did you get into motivational speaking?
I got into motivational speaking kind of by accident. I was doing a concert in Buffalo, New York. I got brought up there to do a concert by a lady named Katie Hildreth, and I was using a bass player named Rodney Appleby,
Okay.
who's a very good Buffalo bass player. And on Facebook, I got to be friends with a person named Linda Appleby, who I could see the affiliation. I was like, "Do you know Rodney Appleby?" She said, "That's my ex." I came up and did the Buffalo concert and found out that she was also an educator. She'd been an educator for over almost 40 years. So she had me speak to her. She brought me up back to New York to speak to her music class. And it went so well that she went to the school board, and the school board has been funding me coming up for about 4 or 5 years now to speak to Buffalo students.
Okay.
So that's how I got a chance to do it, through Linda Appleby.
Speaking, with, the classes and so forth, and going to different places to speak, has that changed you in any way?
Anytime you get a chance to impact young people, it changes you. Because young people are our next grown-ups. And young people reflect the quality of the older people that are around them. So it's always a responsibility when you get a chance to interact with a young person. And given this opportunity, it gave me a chance to try to be inspiring, and trying to make somebody else better inevitably makes you better.
Okay. Now, earlier, before we went on, we were talking about being in Music City, the difference of music that comes out of Music City.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the type of music that's not getting recognized. Do you keep up with local music?
I do as best I can, and I'll be the first to admit I don't do it as well as I could, because I'm in town and out of town a lot. And by the time you've been on the road for a while, you come back and you take care of the things that you missed. But I know that there's a lot of great music in the city. Like had the chance, the fortune of working with Jason Eskridge, who's a singer that I love.
Friend of Not Just Country?
Yes, and I see why. And I've also had a chance to work with Sissy Crutcher, who's another great female vocalist. The Barber Brothers. The Barber Brothers are, Roland and Rasan Barber on saxophone and trombone, or on trombone and saxophone, I guess.
Okay.
And great young people. There's lots of great musicians. My brothers and Steve Forrest. Lots of great musicians.
Okay. Now, what I really want to get into is that you're working on a project called I Matter. Tell us a little bit about that.
I Matter started out as a song. It's a song called I Matter. It's a all-inclusive song, basically there to inspire people and talk to people that normally wouldn't get referenced. Like, there's a part in the song that says, this song is for the struggling single mother, the chemically addicted, the physically constricted, the wrongfully convicted. I wanted to talk to people who normally get left out. Nobody normally talks to the wrongfully convicted and says anything encouraging to them. And I wanted a song to give everybody that idea that they matter as much as anyone. I think I try to do anything that I can to include everyone, because that's the most powerful thing. The thing that we do that causes the most problems is when we start finding ways to exclude people. And it seems like we've become better at it. So I wanted to be as inclusive as possible.
Okay. Now, my producer would kill me if I didn't ask you to talk about Hands of Stone.
Hands of Soul.
Yes.
Hands of Soul. Hands of Soul is a nickname given to me by my oldest brother, Reggie. And Reggie has always been really good at seeing potential in other people and bringing it out. That's why he's such a good teacher.
Right.
And growing up, he would always say, man, you so soulful. You so soulful. You always hear that soulful stuff, man. You got that. You always hear that soul, man. So as I was singing, he would say, I finished singing, he'd say, Hands of Soul. And I liked the way it felt. So I kept it. So if I ever make a bunch of money with Hands of Soul, I probably owe Reggie some money.
There you go. So to my producer, I got that out for you. So, but look, Joseph, what's next for Joseph Wooten?
Well, more music. I'm working on my next project, and I know that everybody that knows me will go, "You've been working on that thing for." But I'm working on some more music. I have some music that I want to have ready for Christmas release. I'm working with my son Jesse. Jesse Wooten's getting his rock band together, and he's doing really well. Trying to get my son Justice in college. He's getting ready to go to college, so we're doing that. And also I'll send a shout out to him because he just
don't leave him out.
Well, he's an athlete.
Okay.
And he just won the state title in the 300-meter hurdle. He just won it for the second time. He's a back-to-back champion.
Wow.
So.
Okay, don't forget him.
No, I can't forget him.
So, Dad, you mentioned Jesse, but you didn't mention me. So.
Well, and I want to mention him also because Jesse is a musician, and it's easy for people to blow that up because they say, "Oh, the Wootens, of course, he's going to be a musician." But Justice is one that dared to step in another direction, and he's excellent that way. So I never want to forget him because a lot of people do. They'll just tend to think about the music, and they'll find out that he's an athlete. They'll go, "Well, he'll get the music eventually." His excellence is athletics, and he's excellent at it. He's a back-to-back champion, state champion.
Good, that's good stuff. So one of the things, like not just country, our format is to give independent artists a platform to be seen and recognized.
Thank you.
What would be your encouragement or words of wisdom for the up and coming artists, the indie artists here in Music City, and not only in Music City but around the world, who's trying to get into the business and make something happen?
This is what I would say. My mother used to say, "What does the world need with another good musician? We need good people." So I would say, if you're going to be an artist, before you get to your artistry, start with being a good person so that your artistry represents something. I would also say that now is the time where we have an advantage and a disadvantage now. The disadvantage is there's not as much built-in money as there used to be in the music business. You used to be able to write, like I have a friend that wrote a song that was on the flip side of Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You." And he sold as many copies as Whitney did, although hardly anybody knows his song. Those days are pretty much gone because now people just download the songs that they want. But the upside of it is, this is the time that artists have the tools in their hands to be self-made. When I was growing up, record companies had it. The only way you were going to get anywhere is if you got signed, quote unquote, signed to a record company. But now record companies want Facebook likes. Record companies are in search of YouTube views.
Right.
They're in search of things that you can get yourself. So this is more time. This is a time unlike any other to be self-made. The tools to be self-made are in the artist's hands. So, and that's encouraging.
Okay. Lastly, where can these people find Joseph Wooten?
You can find me at josephwooten.com. You can find me on Facebook. I have a fan page under Joseph Wooten, or you can just go to my personal page under Joseph Wooten. And then there's imatteryoumatter.com. Spell the word you, Y-O-U. imatteryoumatter.com.
And he's going to take us out by giving us some words of wisdom. Mr. Wooten, give me some words of wisdom.
Some words of wisdom. Be a good person before you're an artist, so that your artistry represents something. And just try not to be destructive. Try to be inclusive. Let's try to help each other. And I think that's pretty much it.
Mr. Wooten, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Again, this is gonna be our time on Not Just Country TV. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and anywhere else that's gonna be on social media. I am Max Fabulous, your host. We are out of here.